We Might Be Crazy is a conversation with creatives across YouTube and Twitch who are aspiring to become full-time creatives on these platforms. Today, I'll be talking to Mirabelle Jien. Really excited to talk to Mirabelle today because, well, actually for a couple of reasons. First reason is Mirabelle and I have been collaborating on cover songs for the last year and a half. We work online, sending projects back and forth, and we've made some pretty amazing music, and really excited to continue that relationship with some more songs that we have going as well. In addition to Mirabelle also running her own podcast called Makin It. In addition to that, she streams regularly on Twitch, is an absolutely amazing flutist, piano player, singer, guitarist, awesome photographer. Mirabelle can do everything. I hope you enjoy the chat. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 7 of We Might Be Crazy. Today, I'm joined here with my good friend, and I guess you could say partner in crime, Mirabelle Jien. Welcome to the show. Great to have you.
Hi.
Why don't you give us a bit of an intro?
My name is Mirabelle. I am a singer-songwriter, composer, flutist, and that is the intro that I give whenever I get rated on Twitch. Yeah. I have a background in classical flute and piano. That's what I started with, and then I also do singing and songwriting, also do photography, video stuff. Yeah.
I was listening to your Q&A session before this just to kind of get a bit of an understanding of you. Because I know, obviously we've been talking a lot over the last year and a half, but I wouldn't say that I know much about your background. And yeah, I've noticed that your list of titles is very long of things that you can do and things that you're...
Pick a lane, Mirabelle.
No, but I love that. You're just going into, I guess, many different directions, and it's obviously this is a perfect segue because from what it sounds like, you grew up in quite a musical family, and you're quite inspired by your mum, who kind of brought music into your life at a very young age. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so my mom is the musical family part. my dad doesn't really dabble in that, and so my brother and I were, my mom started us off on piano when we were kids. And like my mom's background herself, she plays the guzheng, the Chinese zither. And when they were living in Taiwan, she was part of their national radio orchestra. And so she's a professional musician, and moving to Canada, then she started teaching, opening up her own school, her own studio. And so like music was always going on, teaching lessons. I would so if you don't know what the Chinese zither looks like, it's kind of like a horizontal harp, and it's like you're sitting at a table or a desk. It's pretty long, and it's got stands that it sits on. And so when I was a kid, I would just be crawling around underneath the instrument as my mom was practicing. And she loves classical music as well, like Western classical music. And so that was always going on around the house.
Yeah.
And so we kind of fell into that. We kind of had to. We were immersed in music all the time. And
I mean, I imagine you wouldn't really have a choice, right? Being the daughter of a person who runs a music school. Yeah,
exactly. She also was the principal of Chinese school, so we also had to go to Chinese school. But yeah, so my brother picked up flute in junior high, and ultimately he stopped playing that. And that's how I started playing the flute, because we already had the instrument, and so it was kind of like a hand-me-down. So I picked up the flute, and I started taking lessons in that, which led to studying music in university, doing flute performance, and then doing my master's. And guitar stuff, singing, songwriting has always been something I would do on the side for fun. I'm self-taught on guitar, and that happened around the same time I picked up the flute, actually. So yeah, we also had to learn the Chinese zither, of course. Yeah.
I find that really interesting, and I'm really curious to hear your thoughts, because when I was young, I was forced to play the piano. I think my parents had an upright piano that my dad played. Awesome piano player. I didn't really have a choice in the matter, and I hated them for that, because they would force me to sit down and play. And it wasn't until now that I really fully appreciate what they did for me when I was younger, because
right.
It is a bit easier to pick up. But I'm really curious to hear what your relationship with music was like, because it sounds like at a young age you just kind of had to learn the zither, learn the piano.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I was never forced to do it.
Okay.
So I always had that creative freedom. I would just make stuff up on the piano. A while ago, maybe a few years ago, I was going through some boxes and of my stuff and trying to look for things and organizing whatnot. And I found manuscript paper, and it was my mom's handwriting, but it said "Peace" by Mirabelle. And I was maybe like 5 or something. Like, I was too young I hadn't learned about sheet music yet and notation. And so my mom transcribed it for me.
Oh, that's so cute. I love that.
So I've always been able to, just create for fun. I do understand that, the frustration that comes with practicing and being told to practice. And also, I guess, same, like, now I can look back on all my education and be grateful for all the time and effort that was put into that. But yeah, no, it wasn't like it was forced onto me. It just happened pretty naturally.
Amazing. And it's really interesting, because I feel like, especially for things like violin and flute, like Yeju also mentioned to me before in the previous episode 5 that she picked up a violin in the attic. So I'm seeing a common trend of just picking up instruments that have been left to the side.
Yep, pretty much.
How old were you when you started learning flute?
I think I was 13, 14.
And you played all throughout high school and then into university. Do you call it university in Canada, or is it college?
Yeah, university.
University, cool.
Yeah.
What was music school like? In terms of just like, was it classic, like a classical class in terms of flute?
Yeah, it was classical music. It was there's a lot of fundamentals. So like, you take your basic core courses of music theory, history, musicianship, which is like ear training. And then you get private lessons on your instrument, weekly private lessons. And then you also have to join ensembles. So a big ensemble would be like the orchestra, the school orchestra, or wind ensemble, or whatever they call it. There's so many different names for a wind band. And then chamber ensembles, small ensembles. Yeah. And so it would be a mix of rehearsals, practicing for your lessons, and studying up on the theory stuff and history. Yeah.
And I guess, because I remember, obviously for context, I think you basically finished around about the time that COVID started, right at the end.
Yeah. So I did 2 degrees in flute performance. So yeah, it was my master's when it's like halfway through my master's. I had just finished my first year master's, and then COVID hit. And I was out in Toronto for that. And then I came back home to Alberta, and I did the rest of my degree online, which doesn't work super well for music at all.
I'm trying to think of how you would do an ensemble or an orchestra with, just do it over Zoom.
Yeah.
So I imagine a lot of that was cut short, and you kind of had to just adapt to the Zoom life.
Yeah, you really did. And yeah, so like for your undergraduate degree, if you're doing a performance degree, your third and fourth year, the last 2 years, you give a recital. That's like your big thesis. Same thing with your master's degree. Every year, because it's only a 2-year program, every year you would give a recital. That's kind of the big thing that you work towards all year. And the first one of my master's was canceled because COVID hit. And then the second one, I was home. So I did a performance in my living room. Very grateful to have this space because we have a baby grand at home, which is amazing. So I recorded my final year recital in my living room and sent that to the professors.
And probably was the best quality in terms of overall production value for any of the students, for sure.
All right. Having all this gear, yeah.
Even with my work back when I was working in sales and marketing, just having a nice camera, a nice microphone, it just makes things so much easier when you kind of do, I guess, not necessarily related stuff, but just other stuff that needs the equipment, right?
Yeah. Do all of your video calls, meetings look like this?
No. Okay. I switched to a different. So you guys are going to see my picture in full color, but Mirabelle's looking at me in I guess a very flat log footage. Just because I know I can go and edit it afterwards. Otherwise, I would be using a different profile. But I'm just kind of an extra guy. Says the dude wearing the crazy shirt and the mustache.
Hey, we've got like a similar outfit going on with like our V shape in our shirt.
It's all right. It's all right. We've been making music together, so obviously we're on the same wavelength at this point.
Yeah.
We're going to come to that though. I'm excited to delve in a bit more about that and get your thoughts. It's exciting.
I'm very excited.
But one thing that we haven't talked about. So you've basically got a very extensive background in terms of your instruments. You've picked up guitar. Like, what was singing like for you? Like, were you always kind of singing? Like, is that something you picked up recently?
No. So I've never had formal training in singing, but I've just always been singing. And in recent years, I've discovered how singing and flute playing have similar techniques. But it's also probably around the same time as that manuscript paper that my mom was writing on, transcription of my little whatever tune. Probably around the same time. Apparently I always sang in the car. I was probably really annoying. I would just sing about whatever was happening outside, whatever we're driving past, like singing about construction or singing about this apple that I have.
So there's two things now. I think we need to see this manuscript paper performed in real time.
It's like 2 bars long and it's just like 3 notes repeating.
Perfect. We need to hear it.
Okay, I'll find it again.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll update if I get it before this episode comes out. I'll be like, I'll put it here, right here. So going back to finishing your masters over Zoom, how did you, I guess, stumble across this magical realm of internet music playing on Twitch? What was the process to come and discover that?
Yeah. So I have been following this singer-songwriter, Kate McGill, for a while. She started on YouTube doing covers and such. And at some point she started streaming on Twitch. And so I joined into a stream and I saw her streaming. And at that time, because this was like the transition between finishing up grad school and then what I'm doing now on Twitch. And so at that time, I was trying to put out more covers onto YouTube, and I had covered Kate McGill's song, or it was her band song. She has like her own solo project in Meadowlark, which is her band. I covered a Meadowlark song, and she saw it, and on her stream, she was saying how great it was, and you know, she's hyping me up and telling me I should stream on Twitch. and at first I was like, no, why would I do that? Why? No, that's scary. That's terrifying. I have no following either. Why would I do that? I would be singing to nobody. And also, how do you even, I wasn't even thinking about, there's so much stuff that goes on to like the technology side of things. There's so much like OBS and Stream Elements, Streamlabs, Nightbot, everything, and the gear. And so anyway, at first it was a no, and then I guess for whatever reason it became a yeah, I guess I'll try it. I think maybe a few more people were saying you should give it a shot. And so yeah, so I got Rondi. Rondi is like my OG mod, and he's a lot of people's OG mod. He's been helping a lot of people get set up on Twitch. So he taught me about OBS and all the bots and everything. And then now here we are.
But I'm really curious to go a step before that. So you mentioned that this happened in your transitionary period after grad school, but before now. I guess in your head, like you've obviously come back from Toronto back to Alberta. Like what direction did you think that your life was going to take at that point? Like what did you think you were going to do before you discovered Twitch?
I was considering doing more school. Just keep going to school so you don't have to worry about other life problems, I guess. Professional student. That was a question that I was wondering the whole time, because it seems like as a music student, it seems like the jobs that you can get once you're out of school, it seems to be you either join an orchestra or you become a band teacher. Those seem to be like the only possibilities. And I don't really see myself being a band teacher because I don't know how to talk to kids and direct them. Like a junior high band, I don't know how to do that. And being an orchestral musician, that's still something that like I'm still practicing excerpts and I'm still practicing for if an audition opens up, I'll still take it and I'll still try for it. But that takes a lot of time and dedication and discipline. And I mean, I guess in the moment, I didn't see that was what I wanted to do. That was always a possibility, but it's also very hard and spots are very limited and they don't open up very often. So those were kind of my options. And then Twitch just kind of fell into my lap. I didn't really plan for it. I guess like throughout, I've always been following all these musicians on YouTube and thinking maybe I could do that. So I was trying to put out more stuff, as I said, but that's hard. You can't really grow in that same way anymore, because back then lots of people were just doing covers and you'd get all the views. But now, as we were kind of talking about earlier, like you can't just do that if you want to get views and get paid.
Yeah, we had a very long conversation, which, you know, in hindsight probably would have been better had here, but you know, it was still a great chat.
We were in the moment.
It's like, yeah, it was in the moment. It's kind of, you look back on, I love, you know, Chase Eagleson, like just a whole bunch of YouTube musicians, like, you know, Tyler Ward back in the day. Like if you had a great sound and, you know, relatively good video, like back then, like that was enough. Whereas I feel like now there needs to be something more. And it's the same thing we were talking about before, where like, especially with the short form content, I mean, this probably happened recently, probably not so much back then, but like now you really need to have something extra in terms of like making the music, like you can't just have the music anymore.
Yeah. And also everyone seems to have great camera video quality and sound quality now. Yeah.
So what else is there? And I guess it depends on whether or not you want to, I don't want to say compromise your artistic integrity, but it kind of feels like sometimes you just have to pander to whatever's trending at the moment. And that, like, especially for me, that sounds like, it sounds a bit shit.
Yeah, same.
So you're putting out more covers, and then Kate's like, hey, you should stream. And you're like, oh, And then everyone's like, yeah, you should. And you're like, okay.
Yeah.
What was your first stream like?
Kate actually brought her entire community to my first stream.
Oh my God.
Is amazing. Yeah. Yeah, it was so cool. I think I treated it more as a show instead of how it's really chill. It's really laid back now. You're just chatting with your chat, and everybody's just having a good time, asking each other about the day and singing some songs. But I think my first stream, I thought I needed a set list and I needed to follow a certain structure. So I was pretty nervous, but it was also really fun.
What did your gear look like at that point in terms of microphone and instruments?
I'm pretty lucky to have like proper. I was using my AT4040 Audio-Technica 4040, which I'm staring at right now. That's why I'm looking there. It's now my flute microphone when I'm streaming. But I had that, and because my parents' association, they did a lot of events and stuff, and they started doing recordings and everything. And so I had some pretty decent gear to use, which is really nice. But yeah, so we've still upgraded though. Like I've got a lot of stuff now. Yeah.
And it's like, it's something that I'm always grappling with as well. It's just like, yeah, I don't need this extra piece of gear, but do I want it?
It's nice to have.
It would give me a better sound, better image. You know, it's never ending.
Yeah, I also think of everything as an investment.
Oh yeah,
and sometimes I'm like, is this an investment or is this just me splurging on something? But yeah.
And what were you feeling like in the moment? So Kate brought their entire community on your first stream. I'm just thinking back to when I first started streaming. I probably would be terrified because I think I had 5 people in my first stream. It's like, this is terrifying. There's 5 people watching me. Insane.
Yeah, I think also like the interface I was using it doubles as a recorder.
Yeah.
So it can record on board, and I didn't really know how to use it, and so reverb was on all the time. I also had a mini soundboard mixer, and so that recorder was my interface. I was plugged into the mixer, plugged into the interface. And so reverb was just, it took me so long to realize that the reverb setting was just on the whole time. Yeah. I was also,
I love that.
I stole my brother's gaming laptop to stream. So I stole that from him. Yeah, it was kind of nerve-wracking. Also, especially when the person that you've been following for so long is there in your chat. You're like, I don't know how to talk. What do I say? I play it cool, but I'm so nervous.
Luckily, that hasn't happened for me yet. For me, it would be Autopilot. I was watching all of Autopilot's covers back in the day. I think if he would ever raid me, man, just thinking about it, actually, it's like if Autopilot raided me or brought their community over in my first stream, like I'll be a mess.
Right.
How do I do anything?
It's crazy. It's insane. It's so fun though. It's very cool how I'm always talking about Twitch's raid. The ability to raid people is so nice.
Well, I mean, it is basically, apart from being on the front page, it is basically the only way to actually have and discover viewers, I suppose, or viewers discover you, is having someone bring their community to see you.
Definitely a big, a huge thing. Yeah, aside from recommended lists and stuff, it is hard. It's harder to get people to find you. So I think networking on Twitch is a huge thing, for sure.
And is there any particular creators that you've connected with over your time that you've, I guess, been influenced by or been talking to a lot?
You mean like
in terms of people you've met over your journey? Yeah.
Well, I mean, like I met you.
Wow, Wow, that's crazy.
So like, I guess there's the people that I met on Twitch that I found to be very cool and doing really amazing things. There are more people like Kate, who I've been following for a while, and they now know me, that I got connected with them through Twitch. Like Marie, her artist name is Mree, Marie. I've also been following her music for forever, and she decided to start gaming on Twitch. And now we have a raid tradition, which we now call a trade-dition.
Trade-dition.
Yeah. So every Tuesday after I finish my stream, I raid Marie, and on Thursdays after she finishes her stream, she raids me. And yeah, it's like she's another artist that I never thought we would be connected in any way, and Twitch did that for us.
That's kind of the biggest thing I love about Twitch is, I've talked about this before, but I feel like music can be quite solitary in terms of, you know, I'm sitting in my bedroom playing piano or guitar or singing kind of by myself. And that's kind of how I practice. Obviously, if you're in a band, it's a little bit different, but like Twitch gives you the ability to connect with people that, like you said, you'd never meet or interact with like in the real life. Yeah.
Same with there are so many, like there seems to, wow, words. I feel like I've seen kind of a wave of YouTubers come onto Twitch. I want to say like OG YouTubers who have been on there for 10 years or more. So like Kina Granis is somebody else who I'm a huge fan of hers, and you know, she's inspired my music a lot, and she started streaming on Twitch, and everybody was kind of offering to mod and to help, and so I also offered to help, and I sent her some DMs about Nightbot and about commands and what everything is and everything. So then I started modding for her, and
wow,
that was cool. She hasn't streamed in a minute, but that was a fun time.
Was that also during COVID, or was that just kind of a thing that happened afterwards?
Yeah, it was pretty much during, I think. I think it was during maybe 2020. Yeah.
It sounds like you've met basically most of your musical idols at this point. Like, cool. Who else is left?
I would love to do a collab or something with Dodie. She's amazing.
Dodie is
Orla
amazing.
Garland.
Yeah.
Like that whole crew of people. I'm thinking like more indie artists, I guess, right now. That's kind of who I follow more. But
so I will send waves out into the universe. Dodie, please stream on Twitch.
Dodie,
do it.
Get on here.
So I'm really curious to hear though, after your first stream, like what were you thinking in terms of, you know, did you start streaming consistently after that, or did you kind of like, you know, leave it for a bit and then come back to it?
I ended up just starting to stream consistently for whatever reason. I picked the Saturday to start to do that first stream, and then I'm pretty sure I just kept it going. I don't recall taking a big break or anything. I think I just kept it going. And then I added Thursdays I got more into it. And then I had to get rid of Saturdays because I was still in school, and one of my classes had a thing on Saturdays. So bled into the weekend. And so I switched it to Tuesdays. So yeah, it's pretty consistent. It's been consistent like that for the past 2-ish years now.
And what was the main thing that kind of kept you coming back?
It's a good question, because I did burn out at some point.
Yeah.
I think the community, though, definitely. I feel like through the Twitch chats and also through Discord, it's like everybody's got a Discord community now. We were able to just hang out. I feel like I know some of these people really well, especially all the ones who do chat, who do come back every week. I'm kind of invested in their lives now. I know what's going on, and I think that's what, yeah, I think the connection with the audience, with the Twitch fam is what got me to come back. Because I could make music wherever, however, to nobody.
It's the same thing with me. It's just like there's nowhere else that you can get this kind of connection with people that you've never met before. Even if you were a performing artist going on stage, I still kind of feel like that connection, like you'd have like the vibe from the audience, but there wouldn't be a level of connection that you get from Twitch from that aspect. And I guess that's why I've personally just gone all in, because like I fiend for that connection.
Yeah. Do you do a lot of live shows?
There was a period about last year where I thought about doing like a couple of live shows a week. But I speak with a lot of other Australian artists who do a lot of live shows, and for them it's a constant struggle of overusing their voices, getting burnt out from playing the same songs they would on a Saturday, like Thursday to Sunday, and then Monday to Thursday they'd play the same songs online. Like it just kind of sounds never ending.
Yeah.
Whereas what I've decided, so I did a few gigs. I'm like, yeah, this could be fun. And then after speaking to them, I'm just like, I kind of like the fact that like this is my time to perform. Like this is the time where I play my music, and then I have another job that is completely separate to anything relating to content production, music, streaming, that is just over here that I do to make a living. And then I come back, and this is where I'm creative.
Do you think that? Sorry, I'm asking.
No, I've got a podcaster on as a guest, so I fully expected this to happen. Yeah.
Do you think that having that separation, having that job, gives you some sort of balance, or would you, if you didn't have to have that job to make a living, if you could do music and make a living, would you do that? Would you stick to just doing music, or do you think you need something separate to have balance?
So there is a broader answer to this question, so I'm going to come back and answer it. So I've been having a lot of self-discovery recently. So I've been diagnosed with ADHD. I haven't been diagnosed, but I strongly think I might have like a little bit of autism. So a lot of things that I've realized about myself is that if I kind of retreat into this world of just doing music, just streaming in my room, not really having a lot of like interaction with people on a day-to-day basis, I feel like that would be kind of impacting to my mental health. And it would probably cause me to become a little bit of a hermit, potentially. So I think having that balance, having that separation, also having, I guess, the assurance that I have money coming in every week that will pay the rent for this place, pay for the bills, pay for my life. And then everything that I get from Twitch is separate, like is a plus in terms of it pays for all my various subscriptions that I have for music. So yeah, I think I would always have a job, just because it gives me that balance in terms of my personal life, and it gives me the ability to just not, because I think I'm curious to ask you about this. Like, one thing that I've grappled with is really looking at like, all right, how am I going to make this work? And the only way I could see this work is getting a part-time job. Like how have you looked at your journey in terms of Twitch as a career, and how has that evolved over time?
It's sometimes it's a struggle because it fluctuates so much, right? The number of subscribers that you have each month can change a lot, and especially if you take a trip. If you take a week off, 2 weeks off of Twitch, that subscriber number drops so much.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit sad to see sometimes. But yeah, I think that after graduating, I felt like I could just use this chance to, because I started making some money off of Twitch. I got affiliated, and and then we got partnered, and I was making some money, some income from it, and it seemed like I think I validated Twitch as a career because it was making me enough money as I would be making if I had a part-time job.
Right.
So I equated those two and decided, okay, well, it seems like Twitch is just growing and growing. So if I spend more time nurturing this, then this could probably turn into a career, you know?
It's basically the same decision I made. It's just like I see so much potential in Twitch and Twitch music and just this scene that we have in terms of all the stuff that everyone's got going on. Like, I just want to be part of it when it explodes, because I say this every episode, like Twitch music is going to be bigger than, it's probably going to be one of the biggest categories on Twitch in, 5 to 10 years. And I'm going to be there when I'm 40. Like that is like my goal for the next 10 years. It's just to how can I become the best musician I can be, and how can I be part of this cultural revolution as it happens.
So are you super devoted to just doing Twitch then? Or because you've got stuff on YouTube and everything else.
No, Twitch is one thing that I found is Twitch is just useless in terms of just getting discovered. If you are lucky enough to get on the front page for any significant period of time, like that is such an insane amount of growth that you can have in a short space of time. And did you have that experience?
I had. So when you said that, I immediately thought of Heyman, who was on front page for like 2 months.
Yeah.
And I've had some front page opportunities, but it lasted maybe, the longest streak was maybe like a week.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, that when you get the opportunity to be on front page, and I also don't even know how you get on front page, it's an email. The first time was they sent an email and said, we have this slot. Are you able to stream during this time? Would you like to do this? And then the most recent time, it just happened. We just were on front page. Lots of people were joining, and it's very confusing. And I wish I knew how that worked. It's very mysterious. But yeah, there is definitely a ton of growth that comes from that.
But then outside of those periods, I kind of felt, and you and I have spoken about this before, there is I think there is definitely a threshold when it comes to diminishing returns by how much effort you put on Twitch. I feel like unless you are taking advantage of something like a front page opportunity, streaming more than 3 to 4 times a week, especially just music, like, is going to damage your voice. You're going to get burnt out. And I'm going to ask you a question about your burnout experience. But like, I don't think there are any benefits to streaming more, because you want to give your audience a chance to miss you. If you're giving them access to your music every day or most days, like it feels like kind of it starts to become less special, because you are an amazing musician. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like if you streamed every day, like it would be like, oh yeah, Mirabelle's on again. Like it wouldn't be this kind of event that people like know to show up to, because it only happens 3 or 4 times a week, 2 to 3 times a week.
Yeah, I think that I used to look at people who stream at least 4 times a week on Twitch, and I used to think, wow, I wish I could do that, and why am I not doing that? And I wondered if they were making more money or whatnot. But you're right. I think you're right that we kind of need to take a break sometimes so that people can miss us. You just want to, I don't know. I think that there's something about musicians that some of them have a very mysterious side to them. Some YouTubers maybe who only do covers, or just they don't interact at all. They don't speak to the camera. They don't chat with people. I feel like they're very mysterious, and somehow that draws me in more. I'm more intrigued.
But I also think that, like, and this is something that I've actually just noticed as well, and this is why I've started a vlog series, because I've realized that outside of Twitch and outside of this, hour-long podcast, like there aren't really many opportunities for people to actually get to know me outside of, the 3 times I stream every week.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, now that you say it, I think there is definitely mysterious, but I kind of like the idea that like people are like able to get to know me.
Yeah, I
on
do
YouTube.
enjoy that too. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask you a question that I've completely forgot. Oh no.
Was it burnout stuff?
No, it wasn't burnout stuff. It was, I was going to say something around, I realized that Twitch was horrible for discovery. So I basically just decided, cool, I love streaming. I'm not going to change that. But in terms of effort that I put into my, like where I devote my time is entirely going to be content outside of Twitch. Like I need to, like in terms of a funnel, all the stuff that happens before Twitch is the most important thing for me. And this is something that I enjoy doing at the bottom here, my stream. I'm curious to hear how you view that kind of aspect of stream versus content creation.
It's interesting. Before I talk about my thought about that just reminded me of my own podcast episode with Hazy.
Yeah.
Because I very much put all my eggs in many different baskets.
Yeah.
And have, so, but Hazy, when I was talking to her on my podcast, she was saying how everything that she does on other platforms ultimately leads back to her Twitch, and she's devoting most of her time and energy into bringing her Twitch up, making her Twitch the main thing for her. So I thought that was interesting how, like for you, it's kind of opposite, that, Twitch, you enjoy it, but that's not something that you want to put all your time and energy into. And I think I'm more similar to you in that aspect, although it is still kind of my main platform. That's actually where like almost all of my community has been built up from. So yeah, but there's a lot of cross promotion on all these different platforms. Like I take Twitch clips and I post it onto Instagram or YouTube Shorts, TikTok. But yeah, I don't know. I think maybe because it is still my kind of main social media platform where I have the most followers and such, I am probably putting more attention into streaming than I am elsewhere.
Don't get me wrong. So I think I'm clarifying myself a little bit. I don't mean that I'm not putting any, like, I guess, thought or effort into it. But I think what I do is, in terms of like where I direct most of my, I guess, creative energy, I think like I feel like if I was to try and put more effort into doing, I guess, basically divert more of my attention to Twitch. I don't know, this is going to sound really like business minded, but like I kind of feel as though like if I put that same effort into another platform, I could potentially draw a bigger audience than if I did that same energy on Twitch. Just
Makes
because
sense.
of how bad the discovery is on Twitch.
Is it that bad though? Like maybe in comparison to your stuff on YouTube?
So the way I've understood how the Twitch algorithm works is there are a couple of different systems. Either you kind of search by tag or you search by, I guess, like you get recommended some streams. As a smaller creator, I found that unless you are in the top 50 within a category, you don't get any organic growth, because the top 50 represents, a couple of scrolls down in the directory page on music. So what I've found is, when I sit within a position of 50 plus, like there's no growth happening there. But the really unique thing that happened, I think, especially with music and during COVID, and I'm really curious to prick your brain on this, I feel like there was just a lot more. There was more musicians coming on. There was more viewers coming in. Like, what was, because you started like right at the start of COVID for music. What was it like right at the beginning? Like, because I feel like it was kind of a bit of a gold rush in terms of music streamers back then.
Well, I never ventured outside of the music community on Twitch, so everybody is very supportive in Twitch music, and that still stands true. I do feel like the community was probably smaller back then.
Yeah.
I feel like it's grown a lot since. And yet it's still such a small world. You show up in a new stream and you still see people that you've seen in other places.
Yeah.
You start seeing the same usernames, and it's very cool. But yeah, when I started, I was very much taking raid suggestions from my mods and from the chat, and then you start recognizing all these people. Yeah,
it's so funny because you really take for granted, I guess, how close-knit and supportive the Twitch music community is compared to other areas on Twitch. Because I've got a few friends who are, I guess, who play games, and just kind of talking to them about their experiences versus mine, it blows my mind sometimes, the toxicity that a lot of streamers actually have to kind of manage.
Yeah.
Have you had to deal with anything of like to that extent on your streams?
Just like the occasional very racist comments and sexist comments sometimes. But it doesn't last very long, and mods get rid of these people, and it's very nice. And it's been more wholesome than anything else. And I think there isn't that much toxicity, I think, in this community. Everybody's very supportive of each other.
I go back to the first episode where I spoke to Darren, and Darren said, "This is the only music community that I've been a part of where I didn't feel like I needed to compete with the people around me." Right. Like, you're always also, trying to compete for more. Your
podcast is great.
Thank you. Yours is fantastic too, and I need to talk to you about it. I can't wait. This is going to be a long episode, I think, because it's already
been an hour.
Hey, it's going to be a longer episode. I came in fully expecting that, because we still have a lot of topics to talk about. So we're going to take our do you have to go anywhere?
No.
Perfect. Amazing. Because now I'm going to get to the more, I wouldn't say difficult, but obviously the harder question. So Burnout, tell me about, I guess, how that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so hard to think about the negative things that have happened when you're out of it.
Yeah.
But when you're in it, you're just like, the world is terrible and you're all depressed. I think I want to say that I've burned out a few times from streaming. And that's probably largely because I was doing the same thing on stream twice a week, if not more. And it's just, I'm seeing the same songs and people are requesting the same songs. And I mean, I guess they enjoy it, which is great. It's nice. But it gets really repetitive and it gets kind of boring. And also, I think I burnt out when I was focused too much on the numbers, especially number of subscribers, because that is where the money comes in, right? And when I was focusing too much on that was when I felt like I was burnt out. I was burnt out from that. And I did take a break I think there was one time last year around this time, like in April, where I was feeling very much burnt out. And I think it was a mix of streaming and it kind of plateaued. I feel like it plateaued. And also I had just launched my podcast and I didn't realize how much work that was going to be in terms of
really, honestly,
right? Editing and all that, and coming up with your own schedule of posting and being consistent with everything and not seeing a monetary return. I think I was so focused on the monetary value of things that I was kind of blinded by that for a bit. And so it wasn't fun for me anymore at that point. But I had planned a trip with a friend, like a mini vacation. And so that forced me out of this little studio, and it forced me away from Twitch, away from editing, away from work for a bit. And so I came back refreshed and that fixed it a little bit. And I think, as I mentioned to you just now, kind of earlier before this chat, I think that because I started doing a lot of improv on stream and playing flute and different instruments, that kept things fresh. And I play the same songs in a variety of ways now, and no two times are the same, and it makes it really interesting and really fun. So I think that's helped.
I definitely take for granted sometimes that I can play like multiple instruments, because I feel the same sometimes where I have a song where I've been playing over and over on guitar. I'm like, you know what? Piano today. It's today's piano. Let's mix things up a little bit. So was that the main change that you made coming back from your trip, was just kind of allowing for a little bit more flexibility in terms of what you were doing?
I think so. And also just because I felt more lax with stream, with like, I know how things go now and everything. I think I was able to explore more of my musicianship. This whole Twitch journey has really been like me exploring my musicianship, coming from, like, if using flute as my example of coming from that classical world, I had no idea how to. 2 years ago, I could not improvise or compose with the flute at all. But now the flute it makes an appearance in every one of my songs, every one of our cover songs and everything. And on stream, I just improvise all the time now. And it's been like, I've reframed my mindset and my approach to playing the instrument. And I feel like now, through this practice of streaming on Twitch, I've been able to be more expressive with flute, with the instrument, because it was very much just locked in a classical box of like, you have to play, because it's been years of private lessons on the instrument, and there were obviously like amazing, I feel pretty well versed in the instrument now, so I've obviously learned something.
100%. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Kind of.
Kind of, yeah.
But yeah, I think that, obviously I learned a lot, but there were some constraints, and lessons are very, you pinpoint all these small details, like the vibrato, the speed of the vibrato on a single note, or like the length of each note has to be so specific, and like the dynamics and everything. So there's a lot to pay attention to. And so I think that also I burnt out with flute because of all of that. But also because of COVID, like, you can't play with other people. And so I started recording myself and then just playing with myself, which made it more fun. And I think that was my kind of first step into taking the flute out of just the classical repertoire that I was studying.
Did you have many issues? Because going back, I've obviously lived with a flautist, and one of the struggles that she has is kind of my way of playing, where everything is kind of improvised because I'm just looking at chords on Ultimate Guitar. How did you go from transitioning to a very classical background to what I'm assuming is probably a very open-ended, like, here's chords, here's lyrics, like, the world is your oyster now?
I think that my classical education with all the theory and everything gave me a good set of tools, so that if I can figure out, because when I play guitar, I actually don't know. I don't know the theory of guitar. I can figure it out, but it takes me a really long time.
So okay, so that's what you mean by flute. Flute is in this classical box.
Yeah.
And
I know
guitar is over
everything about the theory and everything. Yeah. Guitar has always just been a fun thing where I'm just figuring that out, you know. And so that kind of gave me balance throughout, you know, growing up. I could just turn to guitar for fun. And yeah, so when I'm maybe playing a song on stream, I don't necessarily know what key I'm in when I'm playing the guitar. But then when I start to improvise on the flute, I pick up my flute and I can fumble around and figure out, I know what notes sound right. And then I realize that this is in the key of D major. And so I know like F sharp, C sharp. And so when I'm playing around on the flute, then I know like kind of the realm that I'm in that I can improvise in. And yeah, what was the question again?
So it was how did you go about transitioning from a very classical background to then? Okay, actually, I'm going to rephrase the question. So at what point did you actually start to bring the flute in? Because it sounds like you've had this very, you know, self-taught guitar. You don't really know much theory. I don't either. I just look at chords, play the chords, easy peasy.
Yeah, right.
When did you actually start to bring flute in to the mix?
Peer pressured by my chat.
Always.
Yeah, they knew that I was going to school for it, and they always wanted to hear it, but I was too afraid of playing classical music on stream just because of how, you know, how I was taught with, there's just so much that you have to pay attention to. And I, at the time, couldn't let go of the details. I couldn't play as freely as I can now. Like if I revisit, I'm revisiting classical music now and I feel like I can express myself more. And instead of focusing on all the details that the composer has notated for you, the performer, I can now just play it and I know the nuances and everything. And so I can play it without thinking too much about all of that. So it feels more free. But yeah, so the chat really wanted me to play flute. And I don't even know when I think I probably was just playing along with my own songs. Yeah. And then I started improvising then, because I don't think I ever really played classical on a stream. Yeah.
It could be a cool idea though. Just a classical stream with Mirabelle.
Yeah, I might do that. Actually, no, I have done a classical stream. I like searched up YouTube accompaniment and just started playing along with some things. I was sight reading, and I think that took the pressure off too. Just being like, I'm sight reading, so if it sounds terrible, it's because I've never played this piece before.
That's the thing I love about Twitch streams though, is as much as, you know, you are performing, I think a lot of people can understand that like there will be mistakes, because I have like 300 to 400 songs on my song list. Like I don't know every one of them. I kind of just look at the chords and read along with the lyrics. And I kind of appreciate the fact that a lot of it is, you know, generally understood that this is not going to be a perfect performance. And people are there to interact with you as a human, but also connect with your music and how you express yourself. So question for you, did you have issues coming on to Twitch, I guess, expressing yourself through music? Because a lot of people can find it really hard to, you know, be vulnerable, especially in front of, you know, hundreds or thousands of people.
Ooh. I don't think so. I think when I'm singing my songs, I just tap right into how I was feeling when I wrote that song sometimes. And I get really into the music. I think I don't shy away from it. I'm not really sure if that's maybe because of my performance background in the classical world or what, but I don't think I shied away from that.
And the other side of things, how did you feel about being, actually, how open are you with your chat about your life? In terms of just like your general, like, because I guess to use me as an example, I I'm open about everything. I kind of generally am an open book in terms
You
of my
mean, like,
life and experiences. Yeah, like my background,
on
my life.
stream?
On stream, yeah.
I think generally pretty open, although there are some things that I do, more personal things I do keep, family stuff I do keep to myself.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Was it a bit of an adjustment period, I guess, actually interacting with just a bunch of strangers?
It's weird.
It's kind of weird, isn't it?
Think about it. They're all still strangers. Like, I haven't met everybody in the chat, right?
Yeah.
But actually, no, I think because it was Kate's community who was really the first kind of audience, the viewers who came, the first couple of streams were very much from Kate's community. I've interacted with them before because we were on the same side watching Kate, right? So I think it wasn't too strange.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of like you already know a lot of the people who are coming across.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's really cool because then that familiarity just kind of just keeps kind of going through, because that's actually such a great origin story. I love that.
It's very wholesome. I think it worked pretty well. It's pretty natural how it came.
So then in terms of your journey, when I'm really curious to hear about the numbers side of things. Like, when did things start to pick up? Because you're now at 8,000 followers?
9.
So when did things start to kind of like pick up and you're just like, wow, this is what's happening here. This is kind of cool.
I think at the end of the first year on Twitch, there is, we mentioned Hazy earlier, and there was a time when I think she came to my stream or something. We got connected, and it was New Year's, and I did a New Year's celebration stream, and I was on stream until past midnight for all time zones.
Yeah.
And we were so close to hitting 1,000 followers.
Yeah.
And then Haley was streaming at the same time, and I ended my stream, and then I think we rated her, and she was telling everybody to come follow me because we're so close to 1,000, and numbers are kind of arbitrary, but it's kind of a cool milestone too.
Yeah.
So we were at maybe 800, and by the time it was midnight for me, when it was officially New Year's, we hit 1,000 followers.
Wow.
And that was really exciting for me. Yeah. And so things did start picking up then, I think, around that time.
So then, wow. So after the first year, Haley gives you a big shout out, you get to 1,000, and then things start to pick up. When did you get partner?
Also, like 2 days after New Year's in 2021.
Oh, like a year later?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I just have to ask then, what was the big event that happened in New Year's 2022?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. What was New Year's?
Did the trend continue?
I don't know what happened on New Year's this year. I gotta go back and see. I didn't do a stream though this year. I didn't do a stream last year either on New Year's. It was just I announced that I was gonna start my podcast last New Year's. And then at the same time I got partnered. Yeah.
It's interesting. It's really interesting. That's a question that I was going to ask. But now that we're on the topic of the podcast, like what brought that about?
I was really craving conversations with other creatives like yourself. And our chats have been so fun. But yeah, I have friends who are accountants and friends who are engineers, and I can't really relate. We can't really relate on, I can't talk about my work with them. If I do, they're just like, okay, yeah, cool. But it's not like, they don't know what it feels like to be streaming consistently or to be on the edge of burnout from streaming. Yeah. They don't know what it's like to have full edit days. And, you know, sometimes when you feel like your job is not, like, you're questioning the worth of doing all of this, they can't really relate to that because they don't do any of this. So I really wanted to talk to other creatives about the whole creative process and how we think, how we feel, and also I'm also always curious about behind the scenes work.
Me too.
And
me too. Yeah, I just love I love hearing about like processes, gear, like mindset, journeys. Like I can completely relate with that for sure.
Exactly. So that's what sparked my podcast.
So we're gonna put a little flag post here, and I want to circle back to something interesting that you've said a few times now. Actually, I'm really interested to hear about how you might have overcome, I guess, the idea that the time that you're putting into something is not directly converting to a one-to-one monetary value. So you talk about people who are accountants who have a full-time job. They know exactly how much they're worth because they get a thing at the end of the week or month that says, I am worth this much money every month. Have you been able to come to terms with the idea that the time that you're putting into something, I guess for a long time or a short time, might not actually relate to monetary value at the end of it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like with the podcast, I started it just because I wanted to have these conversations. I knew that, so I thought if it does become monetized, that would just be a great side effect of it. And yeah, I think what's helped with that is just hearing the feedback that I get from, you know, our audience. And sometimes you get DMs about how your music has impacted them, and it's really touching, and that keeps me going.
You want to know something crazy that happened to me recently? You and I are both fans of Jack Conte. Big fans, yeah. He was talking about how music, or what his ultimate goals are with music, and how he knows that he's achieving something that is a net positive to his life and others. And he talked about how he received an email from someone that said, hey, I picked up piano for the first time in 10 years because of something that you have done. And he was talking about that moment being like something that ultimately made the past, 10 years of creation worth it for him. And I was thinking about that particular moment, and I'm like, I've had a few people saying like, oh, I've started singing lessons. I've started, playing more guitar or piano. And it blew my mind to think that you and I are having impacts at this level, the same as someone like Jack Conte from, Patreon, Pomplamoose, and Scary Pockets. It blows my mind.
Yeah. And I think that sometimes we might take it for granted a little bit.
100% we do. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a good reminder. Yeah. That we're able to impact others. It's amazing. It's very cool.
I mean, I'm not sure about you, but I still have to pinch myself to think that people show up every time I stream to listen to me play music.
Mm-hmm. Well, why are you here?
Yeah.
I was like, why?
Why are you here?
It's
why?
Very cool. It's very humbling.
This is super humbling. It's like this. So again, definitely take that for granted. Sometimes I really need to sit back and be like, yeah, yes, this is the thing that's happening now. You're making a difference in a small way, but it's important to remind yourself of that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Sure.
In terms of your podcast, though, I feel, because I'm obviously focusing at the start on people who are, mostly Twitch musicians and I guess people who influence me in that space. But how did you approach your kind of theme and the people that you would talk to?
Well, I started by asking people who I thought might say yes. And honestly, if the first person I asked said no, I probably would not have started it. It's the first person I asked was Michael Alvarado of Us the Duo, who is also, again, another YouTube musician that I've been following for like over 10 years, and we got connected through Twitch.
Yeah.
And he was the first one that I asked, and if he said no, I probably would not have started the podcast. But in terms of what I don't know, again, a lot of the people on my podcast so far are people who I've been following, and they've graciously said yes to come on to my podcast, even though, especially the first couple episodes, when you've got nothing to show for it, it feels, it's a little bit scary. So I'm so grateful that they said yes. And what we talk about is, I go back and I look at the stuff that they've done, and again, with like our interest in behind the scenes things, I love asking about that and everybody's process as well. And I guess it started with just topics that I was just struggling with, like imposter syndrome and burnout. And I felt like I could look to these people who have been in the industry for longer than I have to kind of shed some insight on how they deal with these things.
Interesting.
So that's kind of where the conversations go sometimes. So it's kind of selfish in a way where I wanted to know how they feel, and so I started a podcast so they would talk to me.
It makes complete sense, because I'm sure if you're having those thoughts, then other people will probably be thinking that too. Because I know I had a look through your kind of catalog, and we've brought up Hazy a fair bit. But you spoke to her about Burnout, and I guess did you find the conversations that you were having with folks like Hazy like help you in any way with your own kind of journey?
Yeah, I think it helped me reflect on how I deal with things, and sometimes I could take from their experiences, and it's not like I'm copying them. It's not like they're giving you answers or anything, because everybody's journey is different. Everybody's experiences are different. But sometimes some people have good ideas on, some people have really great tools, and you can take those tools and apply it to your own experiences. So yeah, it's been kind of helpful. Yeah. And sometimes, because for my podcast, I do everything in bulk. So I record everything. You're doing everything like right away.
I couldn't honestly, like I look at your process and I'm so impressed that you just do everything in bulk. I couldn't.
I'm impressed in the way that you do things.
So I like having, because I talk to people. I have a scheduled time that I talk to people. I have a scheduled time for editing, and like I know that like this is the time where I do this. I think if I was to do everything in bulk, I would kind of like probably just drown under the perceived workload that I'm kind of looking at.
I see.
So that's kind of the perspective I have on how I do things. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it's a slow process though for me, because I'm in between seasons now, and it's been a few months of like, it's just silence on my podcast account now. But yeah, so like I set up recordings, and I have the recording times. I set everything up, finish recording or almost near the end, and then I start editing every episode. And then once I'm nearing the end of editing all the episodes, I start putting them out, because I'm afraid that because I want to put things out weekly as well, but I'm afraid that I will start falling behind. And for me, that to me would feel like I'm failing, and I really don't like that. So if I've committed to putting out weekly episodes, I want to keep up my end of that promise, right? So by doing things this way, I can have kind of a backlog that I can pull from instead of rushing to finish everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was saying that because there's quite a separation between when I record and when I edit sometimes. I've tried to bridge that gap a little bit, because in like the first 2 seasons, I would be editing and it would seem like I was listening to this conversation for the first time.
Yeah, right.
Right.
And then you have to listen to the entire thing again. And, actually interesting. So you basically have to like relearn this entire conversation again, and then like figure out like clips and edits and do all that stuff.
Yeah.
Do you have a feeling that might have contributed to maybe just your burnout because you're just like finding the process that worked for you long term?
It might have. I think, well, when I burnt out that time last year that I was talking about, I think it was definitely like, maybe as you were saying, how you just see the workload and it's just kind of like a mountain that you have to climb over. But it's actually kind of interesting because I get to, when I'm making the edits, and I'm not really editing much, I'm just like, if there's any super long pause, I'm not sure that people want to wait 3 minutes for an answer. Not like that actually happens that much, but I just do like very minimal cuts and such. But I feel like in that process, sometimes I'm able to view this podcast as kind of as the audience, because I'm coming to it so fresh in a way, and I'm relearning things myself when I'm making the edit, and it's really fun actually, because I get so inspired by the conversations I have, and then I get to relive that all over again, and I find new things too when I go through the edit.
I feel like that's just such an interesting way of looking at it, because so this will get edited in about 2 weeks' time, I think, because I try and run 2 weeks ahead in terms of my interviews, so I don't have that issue of someone falls through and I'm like, like who do I talk to? So, but I still kind of know, like, coming back to it, I know that the areas by which I want to focus on, and I feel like that's another way of thinking about it, coming back with those fresh eyes, which probably it's really interesting. Maybe I'll go even further ahead to try and kind of put that in place.
Yeah, you could try it. Yeah. Have you, when you do these, I know we kind of had a schedule mishap, but has that happened with others where your guest is, you ask them, do you like follow up and you're like, look forward to chatting with you today or tomorrow or whatever. Are we still good to chat this week? And then it's a really good question. So you're the only person where I've actually had a scheduling mishap. I just completely forgot to say, hey, let's chat next week. We got the day of the week down. We got the time.
But not the week of the month.
Which week though?
Yeah. Which week was that was the challenging part. I think because I guess the first few people I've interviewed are people that I know personally really well. So Ducky I know really well, Matt, Darren, Yeju I know. We've spoken a bit, so it wasn't like I'm kind of like cold outreaching via email. There is one person where they admittedly very busy, but I did have to like kind of chase them up a few times. This is where my sales background kind of comes into play, is because I'm pretty good at like trying to like lock things in, and following up with people is something that I'm pretty comfortable with pretty regularly, just trying to make sure that we're still on.
Yep.
Yeah. I can't believe I forgot to tell you next week. It's just like completely escaped my brain.
Get better, Aiden. I just assumed the upcoming Wednesday. So.
And you were 100% right to assume that. 100%.
No, it's okay.
Yeah. I had an ADHD moment right then.
It's fine. It's fine. Because I knew like I would want to chat with you more than probably the given time frame. So I also it was a chill day because I was like, I'm going to talk to Aiden. And if I don't talk to Aiden, it's cool. It's just a chill day. Yeah. Oh,
I'm glad these chats are chill. And I can't believe we've been talking for an hour and 15 minutes. Where the heck is time gone? I reckon we're going to go, I think there will need to be a part 2 at some point. But I reckon we'll go for another 15 minutes, because there are some, I finally remember that question I was going to ask you before. So we've talked about your podcast, but I want to go back to Twitch, and I want you to think about a moment where you said to yourself, this is something that I can see myself doing full time. And I want you to think about that particular moment when it happened, and kind of tell me about that.
What if it hasn't happened?
Oh, it hasn't happened.
I'm not sure. I think because, as I was saying, that I put my eggs in all these different baskets, that, or maybe I'm just afraid to committing to one, one platform or one thing.
Let me rephrase the question. I think probably it's the wrong question is not to focus on Twitch specifically, but I think the lifestyle of being a quote unquote content creator. Yeah. And it could be on YouTube, it could be on Spotify, it could be on Twitch. But like, when did you decide like this is the thing that I want to try and do? Because you've got a classical background, you can go into orchestras. Why this life?
I've been thinking about that a lot recently.
Yeah.
And I keep also thinking like, is it possible for me to work under other people? Because I've been setting my own schedule and deadlines now for a while and committing to, like, I set my own Twitch schedule twice a week. And for some time, I also set a schedule to post clips and stuff. And I really enjoy that freedom, that flexibility of. Also, I would love to ask you a question on because sometimes, you know, you got to take breaks, right? And being, I guess, a content creator and self-employed in that sense, you have the flexibility to take time off when you need it, if you're really struggling, right? But like if you're working a proper full-time job, you have limited amount of days you can take off. And I think that, sometimes I think I've been thinking a lot about, you know, how do I decide when is it that I push through and when is it that I take a break? Because sometimes pushing through will lead you to burnout, but sometimes pushing through will get you more motivated. Like you might just have to get started on something. So I don't. That's just something that I've been. I have
an answer for you actually.
Yeah.
So when I first started on Twitch, I looked at things in terms of schedule, and I looked at the same as you. I had a scheduled. You know, I streamed three times a week. And I also tried to hold myself accountable to an upload schedule for YouTube as well. And then I tried to increase the amount of times that I streamed. And I kind of felt really quickly what it was doing to my body and my voice. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to bring it back down. And then January 2022 was when I did my first, I did 18 days straight of streaming. And I looked at the end of that and what it did to me, what it did to my music, what it did to my soul, whatever that is. I just couldn't sustain it. So when I got made redundant at my past job, which, you know, I was kind of expecting, but it was also slightly unexpected. But it did kind of push forward my timeline about 6 months because I was going to do this eventually. I wanted to be sustainable with how I scheduled my work. I wanted to basically figure out a way, like what is a schedule that I can stick to indefinitely without burning out, however little, however much. And what I landed on was 3 days a week of streaming, and then 1 to 2 big uploads per week, and then a bunch of clips. And I know I kind of listen to myself. I guess it takes a little bit of introspection to kind of listen to yourself in the moment to see how this is affecting you. But I feel like when you listen to yourself, you can tell pretty quickly when you're doing something that will ultimately harm you in the long run. So it's kind of an answer or also a bit of a non-answer. But it's like, look within yourself kind of thing. But that's kind of how I viewed content creation, because ultimately if I get burnt out and then have to take a bunch of time off, like it impacts you more than if you were to just lessen the amount of stuff that you're doing and just kind of consistently put content out. in a way that's sustainable long term.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah. Sorry, to go back to your original question. I think that, the flexibility of being your own boss, it's both a blessing and a curse. I feel like if you seem to be very organized with your schedule, and I try.
I'm
block
glad it
out
appears
times,
that way.
right? Yeah.
It's not, but I'm glad it looks like that.
Yeah. So I try to do the same, and I try to have scheduled times of, I mean, Twitch has just been the most consistent scheduling thing. So that's kind of my example, but, and I look to friends who who have full-time jobs, and they're so restricted to the hours, the days of the week that they have to work, and you're trying to plan a trip with your friend and you can't because they can't because the timing doesn't work out. I really enjoy the flexibility and the freedom of doing all of this stuff.
Yeah. And
I think that I want to say that I have enough motivation and drive to be able to do this. And holding myself accountable. I feel like most of the time anyway, I can hold myself accountable to getting things done. And so, I think the flexibility and the freedom has solidified my want and my choice of, wanting to make this kind of a full-time thing.
When did it click though? When did it come to a point where this is a fun thing that I do once or twice a week to kind of express myself musically, to, all right, I'm actually going to try and make this work for me full time?
Maybe in the last year when I got partnered.
Yeah.
Because it feels good to be partnered. That seems like that's a milestone.
Yeah.
I don't, why though? Why do we put so much pressure and stuff into these? It's just a check mark. It doesn't really add any sort of value. It's a pretty check mark. That's
It's interesting because the episode that came out, episode 4, Ducky was talking a little bit about how, because Ducky is also not partnered, and we were talking a little bit about why it matters. And ultimately, you're 100% right. It is a pretty check mark that ultimately doesn't mean anything, but it is a validation. It's a validation to a point where you are getting feedback from the platform that you're on, that you are kind of heading in the right direction. And ultimately, it's that, and Ducky mentioned that they wanted to use that. Well, it was just a way to help explain what they're doing to other people. I'm a Twitch partner.
True. Yeah.
So it makes it easier in that respect.
Yeah. It also just sounds fancy too.
And you got a check mark.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I think with that validation from Twitch, that was a moment for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how did you feel? How did that particular moment make you feel? You got the email, came in, just wow.
It's great. Because to be fully transparent, I applied for partner maybe 3 times. I think that was either the 3rd or 4th time when I actually got it. And I remember thinking, because you see people out there putting partner push in their title in hopes to get more raids and whatnot and have more people come.
Yeah.
From that, I can tell that you're also not you're not, you don't like that.
I don't want to talk smack about anyone in particular. And I don't want to, talk about
you
people
do you.
who,
but
I kind of view it as it just kind of seems a little bit needy to a point of, it'll happen when it happens. And, I would hate to have, I guess, elevated viewership because I'm doing a partner push, and then it basically drops back to 40% what it was when I get the tick. I'd rather just view it, and that I feel like that would impact me mentally, seeing the numbers just drop instantly. when you get the tick. That would really impact me.
Yeah, that was very much my thought process of, if it happens, it happens, but I don't feel comfortable putting partner push in my title because I don't want it to seem like I'm asking for viewers, for you to raid me kind of thing. And I'm not sure.
Before we go any further, sorry, do you want to explain what a partner push is? Because I think we might have some people from not from Twitch listening and watching.
Basically, to be eligible to apply to be a partner, you have to have, I think it was like 75 average viewers, and then however many stream hours and watch time and stuff. And so to get that average amount of viewers, a lot of people do this partner push where they're streaming a lot more than probably planned than their normal schedule to get that watch time in. And then they, I guess, as we're saying, they put partner push in their title, so hopefully to entice more people to raid them, so that they get that viewership and so that they can tick all that off and can apply for partner. Yeah. Was that a good explanation of?
Yeah, it was
partner
fantastic.
push?
It was the best Great. Explanation. Yes.
Amazing. Yeah, no, I also didn't want to feel like I was asking for viewers, and I was very much, if it happens, it happens. If not, then that's okay, and we can keep trying if we want to. But I'm not going to, well, there was a time when I was sharing my stream in some Discord channels, because people have a space for that, where, I have a space for that in my Discord. If you want to share your stream, let people know you're live, you can.
There's a place for it. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's not like I'm spamming people telling you to come or telling you to raid me. And so I didn't want to do the partner push thing. If it happens, it happens. And I remember thinking, I was getting all into like manifestation and everything, and visualization and all that. And so during that time at the beginning, or like a year before partnered, or I don't know when, but I remember thinking, by the new year, I will get partnered. And that was after I got a few rejections, I think. But because also there's a time frame before you have to wait a while before you can reapply. Yeah. So yeah, I remember thinking, by the new year, I'm gonna get partnered. And it happened.
Well, it sounds like it happened like on the new year.
It was like a day after, like January 1st or 2nd, I got the email that.
That's insane. I love
in the
that.
partner program.
Have you found, so I've been going through a bit of a period where, and it sounds like you might have been too, where I was really focusing on my numbers in terms of, every stream, go back and look at like all this stuff. Yeah. And I found it was making me miserable. Because I felt like I was kind of hyper analyzing everything that I was doing, and I'm like, can I like optimize certain parts? And basically what I've come down to is I look at, I guess I look at this, I still look at the numbers after every stream, but like I'm not like, I'm just coming on, I am being me, I'm doing the stuff that I want to do, because that is ultimately what will make me happy, and then that is all that matters. Yeah. Have you, because I remember you at the start were talking a bit about your numbers, like have you gone on that journey as well? Yeah.
Yep, definitely. Yeah. I think that though, when it's healthy, it's kind of fun to look at numbers, and it's kind of like I'm trying to one up myself every time. So in a way, it's cool to see everything. It's cool to see everything grow, of course. Yeah. So, but yeah, when it plateaued and when I was paying a lot of attention, I think it just comes down to, remembering why you started and what you're doing it for, and then the numbers become less important. Yeah. But I do actually find it pretty fun to view numbers sometimes, just to see if if whatever I'm doing is gaining me more traction in any way.
Do you listen back to your streams at all?
Yeah, everyone.
Everyone.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you that too. Yeah, I rewatch pretty much every single one of my VODs. Maybe not like, I don't sit there and watch through the whole 3 hours.
No, yeah.
But I do go back and click around and listen to myself and stuff.
I do the same thing.
Yeah.
I think because of, I spoke to Matt. Matt didn't realize that he had his guitar backing track and guitar like out of sync for the first month. I think
Ooh.
I listened back as a source of, I guess, I'm going to stop this sentence. I think the thing that Twitch has allowed me to do is become self-critical to the point where I am now my best critic.
Yes.
Because I know what I like from my own voice and I know when it doesn't meet that expectation. Whereas before I really struggled with listening to me sing and giving myself feedback.
Mm-hmm. During my classical training, schooling, my teacher was a huge proponent of having us record ourselves and listen back to ourselves. And of course, that just feels very cringy. But I think that, Twitch has also taught me that, but earlier, prior to Twitch, I feel like through my private lessons in flute, and piano and stuff, that has taught me to also become more critical, have a critical ear, and to be able to pick out what I like, what I don't like, and how I can fix things or make things better. And so, yeah, watching my Twitch VODs has also done that for me. And in terms of not only just singing, but also with the whole setup of lighting, of sound quality, of the video quality, everything.
I really try my best not to micro adjust things while I'm live. I try my best.
I do it all the time.
You do it all the time. Honestly, I was 10 minutes late to my stream yesterday because I noticed that my angles were just a little bit off. So I had to go and adjust my camera, and then I had to adjust it because I like having the bottom of my keyboard just right below the frame, just everything. And
I do it. Yeah, I do it a lot. I was just yesterday. Somebody rated me, and then they did a little Instagram story as well after they rated me, and it was me playing flute for their song request. And I was here playing my flute one-handed and adjusting the levels.
I actually saw that story.
yeah I was like, oh my god, am I really that picky? Does it really matter? I want to say it does, but it probably it doesn't matter that much.
I feel like you're only ever really picky for your own stream, because when you go into other people's streams, you don't tend to nitpick every aspect of what they're doing. But for me,
right. But also I think that because we are so nitpicky about it, that's I really enjoy the look of your streams, the aesthetic of your streams. I really enjoy it. Yeah. Thanks. But yeah, I think because we pay so much attention to these details, it really steps up the game a little bit.
It's really interesting because I have never been a perfectionist in my life. I've always been the kind of guy that is 50% or 70% is good enough, and then that is where I'll leave it. But something, I guess, when it comes to Twitch has kind of clicked in my head where I'm like, everything must be perfect. It must be perfect.
Yeah. No, that dynamic working with you on these covers.
Well, it's interesting because I send you lyrics and you're just like, oh, you missed a lyric here. I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm being such a perfectionist about it. I'm like, can you redo that?
Can you just do that? That's a great
for
segue.
My sanity.
That's a really great segue. Yeah, it's interesting because I'm not. I think with music, I'm okay, but I think when I'm streaming, it's something else. But
interesting.
It's been really interesting working with you over the last. How long have we been making covers for? When did 2 came out? It came
I have
out
no idea.
a year? I probably should look this up before we started chatting. What has been like, apart from, I guess, making music with me, like what has been your like experience making music with other folks on Twitch?
Well, it's only been with you and Hazy, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The amount of times we've mentioned Hazy in this this conversation.
It's big influence to both of us. Absolutely.
Man, yeah. Actually, even though it was just you two, the process has been very different.
Yeah.
I feel like with you, maybe because we're similar, we have similar mindsets in just how excited we are about the project. And like we come together with an idea for a song, and the next day you send me stems for it. Like it's so fast. And I mean, I don't know every single aspect of everybody's lives. So I'm not sure what your schedule looks like, or it was just a slightly slower process when I was working with Haley on our cover together. It was just it's different. I really enjoy working with you though, because I feel like we both just want to get it done as soon as we can, and we're both so excited for the end product that we're whenever we can, we're working on it. And and also you respond very quickly to my messages, so it's very nice.
I also really enjoy working with you. But the thing is though, I probably do things a little bit unconventionally. It's kind of the thing with the lyrics. Like if I do something that I like the sound of, and there's like 1 or 2 things that's just like, it's like, it could be better, could be worse. I'm just like, this is the take. This is what I'm going to ship to Mirabelle, which is kind of how I'm able to get it done so quickly. Yeah,
no, that's a good point. I think that working with you, I've been more open and more okay with, imperfections, like it still sounds amazing. It's not, it's imperfect. Like it's not actually imperfect. It's still amazing. I also, I don't want to be the snob to be like, you have to enunciate every single T, you got to cross every T, dot every I kind of thing. Yeah. But I am more of a perfectionist when it comes to all of that, all the production.
and that's perfectly fine. The interesting thing that I've gone through, I got surgery to remove tongue tie. So that's definitely helped with my pronunciation. It was bad. It was bad before. It's getting better. We're getting there. I think that was probably the reason why it would slip through a lot more, because I would just accept that is how my vocals are sometimes. And yeah, I go back to Gary Vaynerchuk. I think it was Gary Vaynerchuk. Basically, he's a business dude, consultant man. Seeking perfection is not possible, so you just need to aim for a level that you think your audience will like. So it's like I try as much as possible to put myself in my audience's shoes and think, would I find that acceptable, or am I just being hard on myself for this particular thing? Most of the time, it's just like, I think they'll like this, so I'm going to put it out.
I think, though, sometimes your audience will just follow you. Like, those dedicated ones will go with you wherever. So even if you actually sound terrible, they'll probably be like, you're amazing. No, but yeah. No, I get that. I wanted to ask you, you talked about autotune a little bit in your video. That vlog is up, right? It's out there.
It's out. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I didn't watch through the final video. I just watched through what you sent me. Did you talk about autotune in that?
Yeah. I trimmed a lot of it because it was just me just like messing about with my stuff. But do you follow a creator named Joseph Solomon?
No.
So he is probably the quickest growing cover artist on YouTube at the moment. At least I've seen. He's like, I feel like he's had like 1 to 2 million subscribers in the space of like 6 months to a year. Like, blew up. And he's been doing these production video, color grading videos, tutorials that I've taken a lot of inspiration. I definitely sent you one. I sent you one.
Yeah. Okay.
But he did one on how he produces his vocals for his cover. And he had a perspective of autotune that I haven't heard from anyone before.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about it in terms of, I know that I can sing. I want to have this thing here that will stop me from obsessing about being perfectly on pitch, because ultimately, like humans, you can try as hard as you might to be on pitch. Like, there will be times that you're off pitch. So there is a thing here that will help me achieve that without me having to focus on it. And I can put more attention to the emotion of my performance, highlighting other aspects of what I'm trying to do rather than just trying to be pitch perfect. Because I'm sure about, I have had a lot of issues with pitch over the years, especially with these closed back headphones. I can't hear anything else. I can't hear any room reflections. I actually sing with open back headphones. So I can actually hear what's going on, and that's helped a lot with pitch. But I find if I hyperfixate on pitch, everything else of my performance just goes down the toilet. Like, there's no emotion, it feels very robotic. So I've found, especially when working with other creators like yourself, and I've done stuff with Michael Ellery, I would rather just send you something that I know is going to be on pitch, and then you can work around the sound with reverb and do all the creative mixing stuff.
Yeah. I think it was interesting when I was watching through, because we're doing this behind the scenes video for this cover, and it was interesting when you said that you're using autotune as like a way that, so you can sing with all your raw emotions and it's still being kind of in that framework of it being in tune and stuff. And I guess there is something, to say, like, with all this, the imperfection sometimes, well, I think it's more important with harmonies to be in tune, for sure. But if it's a main vocal line and you are singing out of pitch a little bit, I think that feels more raw, and it can feel more raw, and it can feel more natural, I suppose. So yeah, like, I wouldn't want to fixate that much on singing in tune, or I'm trying not to care too much about singing in tune and getting the perfect take like that. But I think that just hearing what you said about that, again, with all the flute lessons, a lot of it was being told that you got to play in tune. And you have to, because you have to play in tune with the rest of the ensemble. You're not just a soloist, and you have to play in tune with the accompanist. And so I think that it's been drilled into me to play in tune, but still be able to be expressive with your tone and all of that. And so I don't know, like, it's just interesting to see that dynamic, because we do have the tools to, to get us in tune, and it's efficient.
And it's actually really interesting that you say that your flute teacher has been the one that has, I guess, been a big proponent of that, because my singing teacher was also a big proponent of me for that. I remember a conversation. She's like, I want you, I think there was a bit of time before or during Twitch where I was having a lesson with her, and I was singing something by Dean Lewis, I think. And she's like, I know that you can sing more expressively than this. What are you doing? What's happening here? And I'm like, I'm trying to, like, it's a hard song. It goes pretty high. Like, I'm trying to focus on pitch. Like, I don't give a fuck if you're out of tune. All I care about is the emotion of what you are singing. If you go up there and give me 100% of you, there might be some people who are like, oh, he's out of key. Like, I would rather you do that and give everything than be like, not give anything and be in pitch. So that's kind of, I guess how I've approached my singing is like my expression is what I try to, I guess, aim for all the time.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's just that, I think it's, how do I work? I think I'm a huge proponent of, you know, getting the foundations and learning fundamentals, and then using tools like autotune as a tool. Like it's not something that you need to rely on every single time, but it can be there to enhance your performance.
Absolutely.
You know?
Interesting thing though is I've actually recently stopped using autotune for my cover stuff. It was actually after a chat with Yeju last week. Where she described like the studio process of like, I'm not sure. Have you seen SpongeBob SquarePants? So when there was a scene where he gets like kind of ground down to a point where he's like not a sponge, he's just this like kind of like object that's like been like filed down, and that's kind of what she felt like when she listened back. And I found that really interesting because especially when it's just you singing and you're not really singing with other people, like that is still okay. Like it's okay to be off. It's okay to be, you know, imperfect, and that kind of adds to the, like you said, the rawness of the track. But yeah, when we're doing harmonies, I try to send you through stuff that is on pitch. Thanks.
I mean, I've used Melodyne to adjust some harmonies before in my own projects or in past covers and stuff too. So yeah. And autotune, some people I feel like have their perception of autotune is like T-Pain use of autotune. But it can be very subtle. It can be just a very slight adjustment.
I mean, like
you can't really hear it.
You basically think of like pitch. Pitch is like either you're on pitch or you're off pitch. Like there are scents that you can have like deviating away from the note that you're trying to hit. And I guess that's kind of what I'm using autotune for, is like sometimes I'll be like a little bit off and I'm like, oh, this is such a good take. Like the emotion's there, everything's good. I'm just like a little bit off in this part. Like I'm just going to like bring it back. Because you can hear when it starts to warble, when it really starts to heavily correct. And that's a bad take. But yeah, it's very, I try to make sure it's very subtle.
Yeah.
We are coming up to 2 hours. So this has been, I say this every single episode. I'm like, damn, this is a great chat.
Right.
This is an absolutely awesome chat. So I'm excited to hop on your podcast and do the same thing again, but I'll be in the guest seat. I like to finish off the episode by saying or asking rather, like what plans do you have for the future? Like where do you see the next 2 to 3 years going for you, your brand, your music?
Ooh.
Hard questions, hard hitting stuff.
Well, I would love to do more shows. I would love to tour if that's a possibility. I would love to meet all the people that come to the Twitch streams. I've met a few, and it's such a weird thing. It's like I know these people, but I don't. I feel like we're just friends, you know? So I would love to, you know, do more live shows and connect with more people and put out more music. I have been sitting on some songs, and I said this last year that I was going to put out an album, which I didn't do. But I think this year it's going to happen. It's going to happen this year at least. That's very much like the very near future. Yeah. But yeah, I ultimately would love to just be able to, you know, make music and be able to make a living from doing what I enjoy doing. Yeah. And I think that's the ultimate goal.
100%. I think we're still a couple of years off, you know, Jack Conte's vision of the creative middle class. Yeah. You either make money or you don't, pretty much. Yeah. You just kind of make you either make
pocket money or
Yeah.
yeah.
And
So-
in the short term, is there anything that you're working on that's coming out recently?
Well, I'm working on this cover with an amazing musician named Aiden Somerville.
Wow, I should get him on the
Wow.
podcast.
Yeah, you have the same name. It's crazy.
It's insane.
But yeah, there's that. There's that that's coming out if I can get that done. It's on me now.
Well, I mean, this will come out in 2 weeks, so it actually might potentially be out by then.
Okay, well, there's my goal. There's my deadline.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, working on that with you, and we're doing. I had the idea of doing a little behind the scenes production video this time around for at least Patreon, and then maybe a shorter version like you did for YouTube. And my podcast, season 3 is gonna come out. Making It podcast season 3 is gonna come out hopefully by April. So that's kind of the short term stuff. Yeah.
How are you feeling about the next season coming out?
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I have a lot of film composers on this season.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. And some YouTubers. Yeah.
And when do you stream on Twitch normally?
Tuesdays and Thursdays. Tuesdays at 3:30 p.m. Mountain Time, which apparently people don't really know what Mountain Time is, and they're always surprised. So it's an hour ahead of Pacific, 2 hours behind Eastern.
Nice.
And you can do whatever other conversions if you want. Tuesdays at 3:30, Thursdays at 7:30, and sometimes a third day of the week, randomly.
Randomly, when the wind blows a direction, Mirabelle will hop on and do a third stream.
Yep.
Love that. Mirabelle, thank you so much for coming on. You have been an absolutely wonderful guest. Really, really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And-
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Yeah. You just hit me up when the next season starts recording and I'll be there.
Yes.